Hold on tight, friends. Before we dive into this incredible journey through time, do me one small but very important favor. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Why? Because the story you're about to hear isn't just a collection of dry facts. It's a detective story spanning decades. It's a tale of geniuses and madmen, of a near miracle, and of how a single machine could have changed the course of a war and the entire history of aviation. You won't be able to look away, I promise you. And at the end, after all the revelations, I'm going to ask you again to leave a comment. What do you think? Was it genius or a fluke? Let's figure it out together. Let's go. Just picture this scene. Spring of 1945. The war is on its last legs. The Third Reich is crumbling under blows from all sides. But in a secret hangar somewhere in Thuringia, something stands that would make your blood run cold. It looks like no other aircraft in the world. It has no tail, no familiar fuselage. It is a sleek, angular, almost alien flying wing, covered in a dark, matte skin. It looks as if it had fallen from the future by 50 years, if not more. This is the Horten Ho 229, or, as modern commentators have dubbed it, Hitler's secret stealth fighter. For me, as someone endlessly fascinated by the history of technology, this machine is mesmerizing. Not just because of its shape, but because of that incredible aura of what if. What if they had perfected it? What if it had gone into mass production? How would the air battles over Europe have changed? Today, we're not just going to run through dates and specifications. We're going to dive headfirst into this story. We'll look at the economy of the desperate Reich, break down the brilliant and insane ideas of the Horten brothers, and, of course, try to get to the bottom of the main mystery. Did they really invent stealth? Or was it just a happy accident? Get ready, it's going to be long, detailed, and very, very interesting. Part 1. The Insane Order and the Visionary Brothers. To understand where this ghost came from, you need to plunge into the thick of the war. 1943. The Luftwaffe, once Hitler's formidable air force, is losing control of the skies. Allied bombers, like the B-17 Flying Fortress, are erasing German cities and factories from the map wave after wave with carpet bombing. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, head of the Luftwaffe, is furious. He needs a breakthrough, a wonder weapon, and he formulates a task that would go down in history as the 1,000 program, 3 by 1,000. The task sounded like science fiction. Create a bomber capable of carrying 1,000 kilograms of bombs a distance of 1,000 kilometers at a speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour. At that time, the fastest fighters were only approaching the 700 kilometers per hour mark. 1,000 was a speed from another dimension. This order was a cry of despair. Germany needed an elusive ghost plane that could streak over England, drop its bombs, and disappear before enemy interceptors could even figure out what had happened. And here they appear on the scene, brothers Walter and Raymar Horten. Two guys from Cologne, not diploma-holding engineers in the conventional sense, but rather brilliant self-taught enthusiasts. Back in the 30s, almost as kids, they became obsessed with the idea of the flying wing, Nerflagel. Their philosophy was simple and elegant. Anything extra is detrimental. The fuselage, the tail assembly, all of it creates unnecessary drag. The perfect aircraft is one solid wing, carrying within it the crew, engines, and bombs. They built gliders, honing the shape. They were considered eccentrics, but their designs flew and flew very well. When Göring announced the 3 by 1,000 program, the Horten brothers, one could say, jumped for joy. They already had the answer ready. Their flying wing had phenomenally low aerodynamic drag. This was the key to incredible speed and range. They came to the authorities with their blueprints, and, miraculously, they were heard. In 1943, Göring personally allocated them 500,000 Reichsmarks. Let's pause for a second on that amount. 500,000 Reichsmarks in 1943. That's a gigantic sum. Doing some rough calculations, considering the monstrous wartime inflation and the cost of materials and labor, by today's standards, that's several tens of millions of dollars. A rough but indicative conversion to modern Russian rubles could yield a figure exceeding 300 million. Göring didn't hand out such sums for nothing. He believed in the idea. Part 2. The birth of the Ghost. From glider to jet bird, the brothers enthusiastically got to work. Their first step was to create an experimental glider to test the aerodynamics. This machine, designated the H.9V1 V4 Versix experimental, was ready by March 1944. Imagine the faces of German pilots, accustomed to Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, when they saw this tailless wooden arrow. It really did look like a dinosaur's flying wing. But it flew, and it flew stably. The glider's success paved the way for the main event, the jet prototype. But here the story takes its first sharp turn. Talented visionary loners are often poor as systematic managers. The project was too important to leave in the hands of two brothers. Goring handed further development and preparation for serial production to the large aircraft manufacturing firm Gotha Wagon Fabric. Hence the second name of the machine, Gotha Go 229. The Hortens themselves were, so to speak, gently pushed aside, switched to an even crazier project, the Intercontinental America bomber, which was supposed to reach New York. The engineers at Gotha took the brothers' developments and began refining them. Thus, the second prototype, H.9V2, was born. This was already a real war machine. Two Jumo 204B turbojet engines, the same ones used on the world's first mass-produced jet fighter, the Me-262, were built into the thickness of the wing. The landing gear retracted. The pilot's cockpit was in the center. And so, on the 2nd of February 1945, under conditions of absolute secrecy, this strange machine took to the air for the first time. The test pilot was stunned. The machine showed amazing speed and maneuverability. It seemed the breakthrough had been made. But the most interesting part is the materials. Germany was suffocating from a shortage of strategic materials, especially aluminum. And here, the genius or necessity of the Horten brothers manifested itself again. They chose wood as the main structural material for the wing. But not just any wood. This was a high-tech composite construction from its time. 2 plywood sheets were made from thin birch veneer, and between them, a special adhesive mixture was poured. And here, pay attention. According to Raymar Horten's post-war recollections, charcoal powder was added to its composition. Why? According to the official version of that time, for strength and weight adjustment. But Raymar later would claim that even then he understood carbon could absorb radio waves. A wooden structure by itself reflected radar rays worse than a metal one, and the charcoal layer was supposed to make the plane almost invisible to the British chain-home radars. Whether this was actually the case or if it was hindsight, we'll look into a bit later. But the fact remains. This wooden charcoal sandwich became one of the main mysteries of the Ho 229. Part 3. The failure of the emergency program and a trophy for the USA. Meanwhile, the war was rushing to its end. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide in the air, the German command included the Ho 229 in the so-called Emergency Fighter Program, Jägernaut Program, on the 12th of March, 1945. It was given the official index Ho 229. Production of several modifications was planned immediately, an interceptor fighter, a reconnaissance plane, and even a light attack aircraft. On the slipways of the Gotha plant, the third, nearly flight-ready prototype V3 was already being assembled, more advanced, with cannons and a full set of equipment. But there was no time. A month later, on the 14th of April, 1945, American troops from General Patton's Third Army entered the town of Friedrichsroda and captured the plant. What they saw in the hangars left them stunned. Next to the familiar Messerschmitts stood this futuristic, flying wing. American technicians and intelligence officers realized they hadn't just found a new aircraft. They had found a technological bombshell. Everything that could be was carefully packed and sent to the USA for study. The unfinished V3, parts of other prototypes, blueprints, everything went overseas. This was a standard operation of American intelligence at that time, Operation Paperclip and others like it. They took out not only equipment but also scientists. The Horten brothers were out of work after the war. Their genius was of no use to anyone in a destroyed Germany. And their brainchild began its second post-war life, the life of a laboratory specimen, an object for meticulous, thorough study. Part 4. The 21st Century Investigation. Myth or reality? Decades passed in silence. The Ho 229 became a legend, a subject of debate among historians and aviation fans. Was it really a stealth plane? Or was its low observability a beautiful myth? More than 60 years later, in 2008, the American aerospace corporation Northrop Grumman decided to answer this question. Yes, the very same one that later built the modern stealth bomber B-2 Spirit, eerily similar to the Horten brothers' creation. Coincidence? I think not. Northrop engineers took an incredible step. They took the original German blueprints and, using only the materials and technologies available in Germany in 1945, the same birch plywood, the same glue with charcoal powder, built a full-scale, non-flying mock-up of the Ho 229 V3. Why? To subject it to the most modern radar tests. The mock-up was taken to a top-secret testing range. It was scanned by radars operating on the same frequencies as British wartime radars. The results, according to Tom Dobrenz, a leading Northrop stealth technology expert, were staggering. The flying wing design combined with the wooden charcoal composite resulted in a reduction of detection range by a full 20% compared to a conventional metal fighter of that era, for example, the Me-262. Let's think about that number. The British air defense system in 1944-45, upon detecting a standard high-speed aircraft, had roughly 19 minutes to scramble interceptors, guide them, and intercept the target. If the detection time is reduced by 20%, those 19 minutes turn into 8. 8 minutes. That's catastrophically little. This means that an Ho 229, flying at an altitude of 10 kilometers at a speed of nearly 1,000 kilometers per hour, could have appeared over London almost suddenly like a ghost. It would have left the British no time to react. This would have changed everything. Part 5. The greatest mystery. Calculation or happy accident? And here we come to the main point, the one over which historical debates rage. Did the Horten brothers consciously create the world's first stealth aircraft? On one hand, no document has been found in German wartime archives that directly discusses the purposeful reduction of radar signature. All technical reports talk about aerodynamics, speed, strength. Charcoal powder for weight and strength. This gives skeptics grounds to claim it all happened by accident. They say brilliant aerodynamicists accidentally created a low observable machine without even knowing it. It's a beautiful idea, in the spirit of genius intuitively ahead of its time. But there is another side. After the war, Raymar Horten repeatedly stated that charcoal was added precisely to absorb radio waves. In 1950, in an Argentine aviation magazine, he wrote directly that with the advent of radar, wood had become a modern material because it reflects waves poorly. Later, in 1983, in his book, he gave an even more detailed explanation about wave absorption by charcoal and the invisibility of the steel frame beneath this coating. What is this? Hindsight? A desire to attribute brilliant foresight to oneself when the world was already flying stealth aircraft? Or is it still fragments of the truth? Many historians lean towards a compromise version. The Horten brothers, being brilliant intuitive engineers, likely suspected the side effect of their design. They could not have had a deep scientific basis for radar absorption. That science simply did not exist in its modern form at the time. But they could have seen empirically, observed, made guesses. Their flying wing without vertical surfaces was by definition less conspicuous. And experiments with materials could have led them to think that charcoal somehow spoiled radar operation. They were groping their way in the right direction, but without a complete map. That's precisely why the story of the Ho 229 is so gripping. It's not a story about a ready-made technology presented on a silver platter. It's a story about the birth of an idea, about how genius, constrained by the resources and time of war, intuitively felt its way along the path that the entire world's aviation would follow decades later. Northrop Grumman, building its B-2, undoubtedly carefully studied both the museum original Ho 229 and the results of its own 2008 tests. The continuity is obvious. Conclusion: the ghost that changed everything. So what is the Horten Ho 229? It is the most real technological ghost. A ghost that almost became a reality in 1945. A ghost that was decades ahead of its time. It is a symbol of desperate engineering genius, backed into a corner by war. It is a bridge between the era of piston aviation and the era of jet stealth. It didn't get to fight. It didn't get to change the course of the war. But it changed the course of aviation history. It showed that the future lies with integrated designs, with smooth shapes, with materials that are not only strong but also smart. It became a lesson and a source of inspiration for the victors. For me, as an ordinary person reflecting on this story, it is simultaneously terrifying and awe-inspiring. Terrifying from how close the world came to this wonder weapon taking wing in the ranks of an inhumane regime, and awe-inspiring from the power of human thought. Two brothers, almost self-taught, in a bunker under bombing, managed to glimpse the future. Their story is not a glorification of Nazism, no. It is a glorification of the irrepressible spirit of invention, which, unfortunately, can serve different masters. And what do you think? Was it calculation or a fluke? Could the Ho 229, had it appeared a year earlier, have really changed the air war? Write your opinions in the comments. Let's debate. It's so interesting. And if this story has gripped you as much as it has me, if you want to continue unraveling historical and technological mysteries together, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and click the bell. Ahead of us are many more untold stories. About the America bomber, about other wonder weapons, about how captured technologies drove Soviet and American aviation forward. I promise it will be just as detailed, just as captivating, and just as honest. Until next time in the past that shapes our future.